Maybe I can
Lee,
trim.
where is that a picture of?
It's it's the Upper Charles, outside of Natick. It's my favorite little picture that I took last year, I guess. Favorite picture of last year. All right, let's get rid of this obstacles, man. I hate obstacles.
Well, there's four of them, and A is the first one. And it's interesting that Course in Miracles switches its way of organizing its information at this particular point in the book and just pulls in and throws in an A. They do it a few times at different places, and this is probably one of the first, if not the first.
I think
So
it's
the first obstacle,
so 19 out of 31 chapters. This is the first time it's happened. It is a little weird, but anyway, so there's A, B, C, and D.
the first obstacle, A, is the desire to get rid of the obstacle. The first obstacle that peace must flow across is your desire to get rid of peace. You didn't mean it that way. For peace cannot extend unless you keep peace. You are the center from which peace radiates outward to call the others into peace. You are peace's home, its tranquil dwelling place from which peace gently reaches out, but never leaving you. If you would make peace homeless, how can peace abide within the Son of God? If peace would spread across the whole creation, peace must begin with you from your perspective, and from you reach to everyone who calls, and bring everyone who calls rest by joining you.
All right. Peace must have a foothold within the dreamer's own mind if peace is to be extended to others within the dream. We can only give or extend what we actually possess. To have peace, we must give peace. Without the desire for inner peace, the dream of separation cannot be exchanged for the happy dream that the Holy Spirit would offer us. I'm ready. I want that happy dream. Without our desire for inner peace, our special relationships cannot be transformed into holy ones. Our Christ consciousness is the home of the Holy Spirit. Without our quieting the ego, we are incapable of hearing our big S self, which is the voice for love. If we ask for help, the Holy Spirit will give it.
Why would you want peace homeless? What do you think that peace must dispossess to dwell with you? What seems to be the cost you are so unwilling to pay? The little barrier of sand still stands between you and your brother. Would you reinforce that barrier between you and your brother now? You're not asked to let this barrier between brothers go for yourself alone. Christ asks that you let this barrier between brothers go for himself, your Christ consciousness or higher self. Your Christ consciousness or higher self would bring peace to everyone. And how can how can your Christ consciousness do this except through you? Would you let a little bank of sand, a wall of dust, a tiny seeming barrier stand between your brother and salvation? And yet, this little remnant of attack you cherish still against your brother is the first obstacle that peace in you encounters in pieces going forth in your life. This little wall of hatred would still oppose the will of God and keep our mind limited. Before you go on, Lee, I want to say something here about the way I'm reading. I'm adding some little words in here. It's my perspective. And since I'm the one who's talking at this point, even the way I read gives you some of my perspective. Adding a word or two when I'm pretty sure it's consistent with what I'm thinking and reading, I don't have a problem doing it. Lee, if you'll scroll back up just a bit, where it says big S self in bold, which is the only place you'll see it in this edition that we're reading by Tom Wakechild, he likes the word, he had the word big S self used many times. And he's agreed with us that higher self is at least as good, if not better. So when I see big S self in bold, that means that it's his words. I'm going to be changing it as I read to higher self. And then everything will work together. Okay, thanks for that moment. And
Sure.
back to you, Lee.
Sure. The big S and the small s, it's just that I think it makes more literal sense when you're reading because it's right there in front of you. And that's typically the way that we refer to God. So that's what it's really talking about. And so higher self makes, like higher powered self. It makes a lot of sense.
I like that.
We cannot receive the peace of God if we refuse to grant that same peace to all of our brothers. Everybody.
99%?
All of it. To withhold peace from one brother is to withhold peace from all. We all share the one mind of God. You cannot be totally committed to the peace of God sometimes. You can only be, and this is my words, you can only be committed to it right this moment. So that's not sometimes, that's now. I don't know if totally is the way that I would put it. So I guess I'm seeing it on a time scale. Anyway, peace is an all or nothing proposition. Yeah. Truth cannot be true sometimes. To believe that we can find an inner peace while withholding it from one brother is to remain under the control of the egoic thought system. Only by granting forgiveness to all of our brothers do we grant forgiveness to ourselves. We cannot be free from prison as long as we must guard any brother in the prison of our mind. We can only escape from this self-imposed guard duty by releasing all the prisoners. Keep one door locked, and the jailer must remain trapped within that same prison. Our desire to be special maintains our separation from any brother that keeps us from being whole. We cannot return to peace if we wish to withhold peace from any part of the sonship. To withhold peace is to attack peace. We must grant peace to all alike with no exceptions if we are to have peace. We cannot hate one brother and love the rest. To attack one brother is your desire to reject the peace of God. We must surrender our ego's claim that we are not the arbitrators of truth.
You can highlight those last two sentences. The Holy Spirit's purpose rests in peace within you. Yet you are still unwilling to let peace join you wholly. You still oppose the will of God just by a little, and that little is a limit you would place upon the whole. God's will is one, not many. Scrolling, God's will has no opposition, for there is no will besides God's will. What you would still contain behind your little barrier and keep separate from your brother seems mightier than the universe. For the barrier of separation would hold back the universe and its creator. This little wall would hide the purpose of heaven and keep it separate from heaven.
There can be no barriers that a separate oneness. There can be no barriers that separate a oneness. To exclude anyone is to reject the idea that we're a shared oneness. To argue for separation or specialness among the sonship is to reject the peace of the one self.
Would you thrust salvation away from the giver of salvation? For such have you become. Peace could no more depart from you, the giver of salvation, than from God. Fear not this little obstacle to peace, which is your desire to attack another. This desire to attack another cannot contain the will of God. Peace will flow across this desire to attack another and join you without hindrance. Salvation cannot be withheld from you. The granting of salvation to all is your purpose. My purpose, everybody's purpose. You cannot choose apart from this granting of salvation to all. You have no purpose apart from your brother, nor apart from the one you asked the Holy Spirit to share with you. The little wall of separation between you and your brother will fall away so quietly beneath the wings of peace. For peace will send its messengers from you to all the world, and barriers will fall away before their coming as easily as those that you interpose will be surmounted.
While on earth, our function is forgiveness. By granting forgiveness to all, we see the sonship is seen as sinless. The removal of the belief in sin is the cornerstone to salvation, which is the sonship's return to peace, truth, and knowledge. This removal of the belief that we are sinful also dispels guilt and fear from our minds. We reclaim the sonship's innocence. That's 4. Have a wonderful
Got a scroll,
day.
Lee.
I know that's 4 paragraphs.
And tomorrow we'll pick it up right here.
All right, right there.
Thanks, Lee.